Another favorite game of mine has become 10 years old, and to celebrate that I will take a look at the game and we will find out how well this game aged and whether it's still worth playing today. In case you haven't guessed it yet, this episode is dedicated to Fallout 3, a game that was very controversial when it first came out in 2008. For now, let me begin with the graphics. The game mostly does not fail to set a good atmosphere all around the various hundreds of locations you can explore on the large map. Most places look eerie and interesting, and even though some places look and feel very unique and memorable, the graphics in Fallout 3 can be quite disappointing from time to time, especially on the console versions of the game. However, even the PC release has some ugly spots that are present all throughout the map. And even though most textures look crisp and sharp, you can still find many ugly ones not only in hidden areas, but right in front of you. For example, look at these doors, these windows, or this pile of rubble on the floor. And these textures can not only be found in interior areas. Another good example is Megaton. While it sure creates a unique atmosphere, some textures are just horrible to look at. The same applies to the ruins of DC. While the enterable buildings look good, all the decorations and destroyed skyscrapers look boring and plain most of the time. It often feels like they place the same building all over the map. Other than that, I don't have a lot of concerns regarding the textures. The vast majority of the map does look good, even though some areas can be rather boring, because you will hardly find any bushes, trees or even grass, so a lot of the map looks like this. Dirt as far as you can see. Which makes sense in a way, considering that the game takes place in the wasteland of Washington DC. However, weather effects like fog and clouds, the dynamic day and night cycle, particle effects, skyboxes and most of the lighting do look good. But one thing that's definitely missing is any form of dynamic light. Well, almost. There seems to be a global light that creates dynamic shadows, but only in the third person view, and it's not accurate most of the time, even though there seem to be light sources that cast shadows correctly. But unfortunately, neither the player's flashlight nor enemy lamps or weapons cast shadows dynamically. But considering the size of the map and the fact that this game had to run on hardware from 2008, especially the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, I would say that it looks good enough, but it doesn't blow my mind. One thing that does look brilliant is the water. Reflections look sharp and accurate, and waves on the surface do look realistic and good on each platform. Another important factor when establishing atmosphere in games are the sound effects, and I cannot really find a single bad thing to say about the sounds and music used in this game. Usually you get a mix of twisting and screeching metal, wind noises, breaking concrete and screams from the enemies and NPCs. Different weapons have similar but unique sounds when using them.
Alert.
And the music used in the game just helps setting the mood. And I'm not talking about the radio stations, but the music that tunes in when you turn the radio off. The radio, however, either plays a short playlist of jazz, country and old popular music, or a mix of classical music and speeches of the president.
You're listening to Enclave Radio. I'm John Henry Eden, President of the Enclave, President of America, President of your heart.
Anyway, let's take a look at the weapons available in the game. Other than the classic handguns, shotguns and rifles, the Wasteland of DC welcomes you with a variety of knives, bats and tools that can be used to crush the bones of your enemies, and a good range of large weapons like rocket launchers, miniguns and my absolute favorite, the Fat Man. And because Fallout 3 is still an RPG, your entire equipment will break over time. So you need to take care of your weapons when they start wearing out. Otherwise, they will suffer from decreased accuracy, damage and reliability, which might be fatal for you. However, unlike in newer games in the series, no attachments can be mounted on weapons in the vanilla version of Fallout 3. Neither can they be named or repainted or customized in any other way. so there was never really a reason to hold on to weapons for too long for me. Even though the game heavily relies on shooting stuff, Fallout 3 is not a pure shooter, which makes it the unique game it is. You can earn experience by finishing quests and killing enemies, and your character will level up from time to time, allowing you to improve your character's stats and choosing from a set of perks. Not only that, Fallout 3 also has a nice dialogue system, which allows you to interact with NPCs. Sometimes you can get extra information regarding quests, have a fun conversation, or skip several side quests during the main storyline to save some time.
Well, your dad is some sort of scientist type, some kind of egghead or something. You really think if you find him, he'd help our cause?
All the characters are fully voice acted, and it's impressively done, considering the huge amount of different lines the NPCs in the game have. However, most generic NPCs don't have their own voice actor, but all the important characters do. But except from doing small talk with strangers, you can trade stuff with most of the NPCs, and you can also steal their stuff or put a life grenade in their bag and watch them lose their head.
Holy shit! No!
You won't have that much time talking to strangers anyway, because if you are anything like me, you will spend most of your time exploring every corner of the map or focus on the various quests. The game really doesn't limit you in that regard. After you finish the introduction, you can basically do whatever the hell you want. The game does give you a general direction in the form of a main quest line, but it's fully up to you whether you follow it or simply do your own thing. But when you do your thing, be aware that actions might have consequences, because the game tracks your actions in the form of karma.
Daddy, no! No.
Other NPCs may not want to talk to you, or they might even hire headhunters to get you killed if you're too evil.
And now it's time for you to die.
Your freedom of choice continues everywhere throughout the game. You are not even limited to using the first-person camera. You can always switch to a third-person camera mid-game and look at your character or simply play like that if you prefer it this way. You also have a lot of freedom when doing quests. Usually you get a task, but how you achieve it is completely up to you. And again, usually your actions have consequences, sometimes less dramatic and sometimes they make a huge impact on the game world. Talking about quests, the game has a main storyline you can follow, which is good, but not the best story I've ever played. It has its good, enjoyable and memorable moments, but it also has its weak moments when nothing really happens. The story revolves around the player looking for the character's father, who disappears from the underground bunker called the Vault the protagonist and the father were living in. The story begins with a rather simple character designer, where the protagonist's look can be customized, followed by the player's early years in the Vault, which I thought was a very clever way of including a tutorial in the game, and it sure was a unique one too. I think I will never forget taking that ominous goat for the first time, which is a school test used to determine the base stats and perks of the character based on the given answers.
Looks like the diner's going to get a new fry cook. I'll just say this once. Hold the mustard, extra pickles.
You set off to look for your father, and you can follow the hints the game gives you, but you can also walk off in the distance and try to find him on your own. NPCs who have valuable information can die along the way, making it harder but not impossible to find your father. Eventually the father can be found in another vault, trapped inside of a simulation, which was another highly memorable and bizarre moment in this game, and I certainly had a lot of fun causing mischief in the Tranquility Lane. For me, the main quest started becoming a little too repetitive after that point. Sure, it had some more good moments, but the rest of the story mostly consisted of running around and fetching stuff like a well-trained dog. And when the story comes to the grande finale, it gets even worse, at least in my opinion. When you finish the final quest, the ending cutscene plays, showing a summary of your decisions throughout the game. However, after that, you get kicked out back into the main menu. You cannot explore the map anymore after that point. Sure, you can always load up a save game before starting the last quest, but then you will always have that unfinished quest, which bothers me more than it possibly should. However, if you buy the Broken Steel expansion, the game becomes open-ended, where you can explore the map, play other quests and find new companions after finishing the main story. Talking about side quests, there are quite a few. For me, personally, the side quests are far more memorable than the main storyline. The most interesting places in the game world have at least one quest revolving around them. Other than side quests, there are a total of 20 bobbleheads that can be collected all throughout the game, which grant you a small skill boost for your character. And if you get bored of exploring, finishing quests and collecting stuff, you can start with one of the DLC packs. 4 of the DLC packs feature a completely unique map, and 3 of them can be explored as long as you want. However, the 4th map cannot be fully explored freely. It's a military simulation that takes place in Alaska and simulates the liberation of Anchorage. I personally did enjoy the DLC, but it was rather short and very linear. It had almost nothing in common with the main game, as you couldn't really decide on what to do next or how to do it. Also, the battlefield felt kinda empty. Usually there were not more than 5 enemies at once in an area, which made the entire simulation feel like you were infiltrating a ghost town instead of liberating Alaska in a huge war. So yeah, this content pack was not really that great, but still enjoyable for 2 hours if you don't question it too much, plus it features some cool weapons. The second DLC, called The Pit, gave players much more freedom of choice. It features a fully explorable, destroyed version of Pittsburgh in which slaves have to work to create weapons and ammunition from scrap metal. The content pack features a new quest line in which you have to decide about the fate of the slaves by fighting your way up to the leader of the Pit Raiders. The quest line should take most players around 4 hours to finish if they don't do anything else. This DLC also added a variety of new weapons, outfits and 100 steel ingots that can be collected. What I really liked about this DLC was the atmosphere Bethesda managed to create. The map looks dirty and the air looks polluted, creating this very unique look and feel of the map. Now this looks post-apocalyptic. The third DLC was Broken Steel, which added a new ending to the game, as mentioned before. Besides that, the pack also included new weapons, some of which are the most powerful in the game. The 4th content pack added a whole new area to explore, which was Point Lookout. It's a large swamp wasteland with a few houses and tourist attractions. This map is not really destroyed, but it has a very unique and special atmosphere, created by the dense fog and interesting landscape. And, like before, there is a new questline revolving around a missing daughter and a fishy ferryman, which was rather interesting. The last DLC for Fallout 3 is Mothership Zeta, in which the player gets abducted by aliens and wakes up in their spacecraft. This DLC is very similar to Operation Anchorage, because it is mostly combat based and very linear. In the quest, the player tries to escape the very nicely decorated and designed alien ship together with other survivors. During this escape you have to fight a bunch of aliens and other creatures, and you have to destroy several alien generators to reach the ship's bridge. Upon finishing the contents pack questline, you are free to leave the spacecraft and you can also return to it. However, many parts of the map are locked upon finishing the storyline. But one thing I have to say is that the map of this DLC was really cool. I never used to like it, but I replayed it for this review and I started loving it. You can take a walk in outer space, fight aliens with futuristic weapons, see a death ray in action and use it to fight and destroy an alien general. Even though it is very linear, I still think it is worth playing, much more than Operation Anchorage. But seriously, most of the DLC packs were good, but there are a ton of mods out there that can make the game even more enjoyable and bizarre, and almost all of them are free. I think I never made it through a game session playing Fallout 3 without getting stuck in the ground at least once, or getting stuck in a room with no escape, or scripted actions simply not happening, or the game crashing without any noticeable reason. Furthermore, if you want to play the game on Windows 8 or newer, you're in for some real trouble. Depending on your system configuration, the game might not start at all, simply crash or freeze after the main menu, or let you play a while and then do the same thing. However, there are fan-made patches that seem to fix these issues. But now for the final rating. Is the game still good today? Well, I would say totally. It has not lost a whole lot of its charm from back in the days, especially when looking at the PC version with all the mods, the improved graphics and the better frame rate and loading times. However, the console versions have not aged that well. The graphics are nowhere nearly as good as on the PC, the loading times are horrible and the frame rate is moderate at best, sometimes dropping into the slideshow region on my original fat PlayStation 3. So I would say it's totally worth getting the game if you don't have it already, but only on the PC with at least the Broken Steel DLC and the updated unofficial game patch installed.